Last week, I released my first episode of the If Then podcast, and the response was overwhelming. You guys were giving me specific examples of how the podcast had directly impacted your life and your situation right at that moment. And I mean, that just made everything completely worth it. I'd been working on this thing alone for months and months and months, and I didn't know how it was going to be received. But that response, man, thank you. I'm not exactly sure how often I'm going to post the new episodes of the podcast onto YouTube, but episode 2, I'm really proud of. And I really think that it could have a big impact on your life. What I came up with to curb my phone addiction, I really wanted to get out to the most people possible. If you share this episode on Instagram, there's a chance you could win free AirPods at the end of the month, but more on that at the end of the episode, which is called If Phone Addiction, Then Play This Simple Game. Let's get into episode 2. My name is Jordan Taylor, and welcome to the If Then podcast. Our brains are a conglomerate of if-then statements, like in computer code, and oftentimes, new lines of code are hard to write in our mind when we're trying new things. For example, if I want to play piano, then I need to read music. Sitting down and coding that particular if-then statement could take years of dedication, but when we do sit down and create new then statements for a complicated if, it feels freaking amazing. This podcast is your weekly motivation and mine to get uncomfortable and write some neurological code. Success is the sum of small efforts, repeated day in and day out. Robert Collier. When I got married and immediately bought my first house, I knew nothing.
Congratulations, kids. Here's the keys.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, but don't forget, be sure to change the locks.
Oh, right. All right, Sarah, so, should we go to Home Depot or something to get those, right now? See, I lived with my parents up until then, and I'm ashamed to say just how little I knew. I saved a lot of money that route, which helped me out in the long run financially, but at the cost of not knowing some basic things. What time is it?
6?
You've got to be kidding me. 4 hours? Why is this taking so long? How do you pay an electric bill? Or set up your water?
What's that man doing outside?
I'm not sure. Is that the water meter dude? Like the meter reader or whatever?
It looks like it. He's opening the meter. Why don't you go out there and talk to him?
All right. Sir? Hey, sir, what are you... Sir? I don't know. I think he was just reading it.
Jordan, the water is off.
Are you serious? We just bought this place today. And there goes the electricity. Before you ask, yes, that was a true story. Other things like, what supplies do you need in your house at all times? What insurance should I get? How do I fix that leaking faucet? Replace an entire toilet? This was one of the more frustrating times of my life. All at once, tons of if-then statements needed to be formed, and fast. Very fast. My home didn't just depend on it, but my self-image and mental state. I struggled with feelings of inadequacy. I felt like a loser, and in a way, I kinda was. Here I was in my mid-20s struggling to pay a water bill. To this day, it's hard to admit that. Every single day was a day filled with ifs and no thens. Things that should take 10 minutes took me hours and hours of writing and deleting buggy code in my mind before I got to anything even remotely workable. The code not clean, but hey, at least it ran. For now. Kind of. I'd worry about the rest later. At some point, scrolling the internet was just easier. After all, that was something that I was really good at, that was already hardwired in my brain. It gave me immense temporary comfort, But there was a cost. We were living in only one room of our 2,000 square foot house. We were essentially living in a small apartment with unfinished projects piled up in each room of our fixer-upper.
Jordan, the faucet's been leaking for weeks now.
I know, I'm gonna do it right now, okay? Getting up off the couch, I knew that probe was a 4-hour if-then trudge. It felt nearly impossible to force myself off my computer to do it. I was quote-unquote working off of a cedar chest in the living room that my wife's grandfather made, a makeshift desk for the time being. It had been too much time, though. It felt like an ultra-marathon through the desert to get from that chest to that bathroom, stepping over piles of half-done things, to pick up the tools I didn't know how to use, to begin to make countless mistakes before the drips stopped. Again, for now at least. The thing I realized, though, was that once I started working on the project, it was never as bad as it was built up in my mind. Yes, it took me a shameful amount of time to do what seemed like screwing in a light bulb, but it felt rewarding. It was valuable. I knew it was valuable. It made me feel useful and capable. But even though I knew that, it was still nearly impossible to get off my makeshift computer chair, a turned around IKEA couch facing the wall and cedar chest. But after years of struggling and a lot of wasted time, I finally developed a trick, more like a game. Something I could do to get myself up off the comfy couch, out from under that warm blanket, off my phone, and into an uncomfortable situation to better myself. I had to convert the pain into a game. I called it the dope game. I would start my watch and begin the action of fixing the faucet. As soon as I felt the urge to pick up my phone to get that dopamine rush, the dope game, okay, it's kind of stupid, but I would stop the clock 5 seconds and then reset it to 0 and start again. I was amazed with how many times my mind instinctively gravitated to Instagram, the news, YouTube. Every time I felt like I quote-unquote accomplished something, I would get that urge for the reward of a phone scroll, no matter how pitiful the accomplishment. Get off the couch, urge, clock, 15 seconds. Walk into the bathroom, urge, clock, 12 seconds. Find the right tool, urge, clock, 20 seconds. Assess how to engage tool with faucet, urge, clock. Hey, that was a minute this time. Without fail, the clock would extend on a graph up and up. Not the smoothest curve, mind you, but a curve nonetheless. And by monitoring the addictive behavior, I was able to begin looking at it more objectively. I was able to see, with real numbers, data, the damage I had programmed into my brain's reward system. All at once, it was very real and very sad. I was outside of the program, actively adjusting the code, desperately rewriting it from my proverbial keyboard, the stopwatch. I could see the progress as the urge's spacing increased more and more. 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. I could feel my brain calm, peace abounding even as a demanding problem was reached within the engaged project. What size pipes are these? Are there different sizes of copper pipes? Surely there are. How do you solder? Is that even something I should attempt? At some point, my brain would be so engaged that I completely forgot about the clock, until I would wonder what time it was and, looking down, see the timer going, and all at once feeling proud that I had forgot. Soon enough, or not so soon enough, the faucet was fixed. The dope game has been one of the most valuable concepts I have come up with to get myself uncomfortable and write new neurological code. This small effort, repeated daily, multiple times a day, if need be, is highly effective for one reason. It rewrites buggy code. It's taught me that before writing new code, new if-then statements, I have to first reprogram old buggy if-then statements. If pick up tool, then check phone. If sit on the toilet, then check phone. are terrible pieces of code that I unwittingly wrote along the way. I might have written that same type of code 100 different ways in 100 different scenarios, but the dope game is like writing a function within a program that finds all of those faulty if-then statements and corrects them automatically without my having to individually find each one buried within the brain's folds. It resets the brain and allows for new useful if-thens to be written on a fresh slate. So I'll leave you with this. Success is the sum of small efforts repeated day in and day out. Robert Collier. Thank you so much for listening to the second episode of the If Then podcast. If you have feedback you want to give me, or if you have anything you want to say, email me at contact@ifthenpodcast.com. And if you would, leave me a 5-star review if you found this podcast valuable. It really helps the podcast to get seen by other people like yourself. We're almost at 100 on Apple Podcasts and 150 on Spotify. And as an extra bonus, for those of you who help me spread the word, I've been giving away 2 free 1-month Audible gift cards every week this May. Last week, Daniel and Sammy won a free credit for an audiobook of their choice, plus access to their Plus catalog, which includes thousands of audiobooks with no credits needed. And if you win this week, don't worry, the gift card is available to you even if you already have an Audible account. All you have to do to enter to win is take a screenshot of this podcast and share it on your Instagram while tagging the account If Then Podcast in the post or story. If you shared the last episode, you can also share this one too to be entered to win again. And also, be sure to follow If Then Podcast on Instagram to find out if you're the winner this week. If we get 100 shares by the end of the month, each of you will be entered to win a pair of AirPods. We're a third of the way there, just so you know. So keep sharing. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Jordan Taylor, and what if then will you write today?